Cool. Well, first and foremost, Leilani, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. So, if you don't mind me asking, where do you train out of? Like, what state are you in?
I'm in Oregon. I'm in a small town called Lebanon.
Okay, so I assume probably not a huge bodybuilding scene where you are.
It's actually getting bigger. It's pretty
Okay.
surprising. There's a couple gyms that are popping up. I have a IFBB Pro physique competitor that's at my gym.
Oh, well, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. So at least you're not by yourself.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into like training in the fitness world in general?
So I've been doing strength training probably for about 10 years.
Mhm.
I started out as a soccer player. And then when I was like 13, 14, my dad started getting me into CrossFit to try and like make me better at soccer. And then I fell in love with that, quit soccer, started doing CrossFit for a long time, and then switched over to Olympic weightlifting.
Mhm.
And just after a lot of back injuries and knee injuries and stuff, I retired from weightlifting and then started
Mhm.
getting into bodybuilding just recently.
Interesting. So you had a lot of injuries doing Olympic weightlifting. Was there like anything in particular that caused them? Is just the grind of constantly doing that kind of lifting, or was there something in particular that caused, you to have these injuries?
I think it was like a combination of factors. I definitely like I started really young. Um,
Hmm.
and there's still not like a lot I'm like a big data person. There's not a lot of data about like what it does to your bones yet. Like starting super
Hmm.
young and like competing at such like a high level. Like I was competing at nationals and lifting a lot for like a young girl. But I also have congenital like flat femurs, so my
Hmm.
knees will dislocate um
Oh,
pretty easy. So it was that's why I quit soccer originally. But weightlifting started to get a little bit difficult too.
I could imagine. Like if you're, I'm sorry, that's not funny at all. But
So
like
it's
if,
kind of it's funny, yeah.
I just imagine somebody like doing an Olympic like snatch and clean or something, and like your knees like dislocated. Like that would be horrific. Like how does that happen? Like is it just they just come out, or like how, or is it not like is it very visible? Like you can see it, or is it something that you just kind of feel popping in and out? Like how does that work?
It just kind of slides. So I have like my tendons around that are like pretty
Hmm.
strong, but like my patella will literally just like go off to one side or whatever. It
Okay.
happens very rarely, but when it does, it's very uncomfortable. So
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. It's always so the interesting thing about like shoulders and knees and all these joints that come out of like in and out of the socket, they always say, and I believe it's true, it's like once, and in your case it might be like you said a congenital thing, but even if you don't have that, if it comes out once, it usually makes it easier like to come out again and again. There was a guy that I wrestled with on my team years ago, and he was fine, and then like he had a shoulder come out, and then after that it would just come out all the time. Like so it was, I imagine he probably, I don't know, I don't keep up with him anymore, but I imagine that's like something that like surgery would have to be like implemented, in that kind of situation. So I
yeah,
don't know.
thankfully I've taken a lot of time to like build up the muscles around it. So I'm pretty, as long as I don't do like super explosive things, like a lot of, I can still clean and snatch, but like I
Hmm.
don't go super heavy and I don't really do it anymore with bodybuilding anyways. But
Right. So to move on, to pivot into that, how is your training for bodybuilding? Now, like how do you train? I mean, you're in wellness, so like can you give me like a breakdown of like your training for it?
yeah, so Monday I do glutes. Tuesday is my push day. I actually have a lot like smaller shoulders than I feel like a lot of wellness girls. So I've been trying to bring that up too. So I do
Hmm.
probably more upper body than a lot of the wellness girls.
Hmm.
Wednesday is like my full leg days, like quad ham more focused.
Hmm.
And then I rest Thursday or like do cardio.
Mhm.
Friday I do pull, and then Saturday I do like a glutes and then shoulder touch-up day.
Do you have like a favorite leg exercise?
Ooh. I either like I've always loved Bulgarian split squats. I feel like they hurt the most, and I feel like anything that hurts the most is probably gonna give me the best muscles.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I've ever had anybody like say that. Usually people are like squats, like different machine type of squats, hack squats, this, that. But yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So did somebody get you into Bulgarian split squats, or did you just like, you always kind of knew about them and you just implemented into your game once you went to bodybuilding?
I actually have been doing them for a long time. Especially when I was doing Olympic weightlifting, I realized like how weak like one leg was compared to the other. So I started doing
Mhm.
my fiance was my Olympic weightlifting coach, so
Okay.
he started like putting those into my program and like working unilateral work and stuff. I always remember hating him for putting them in there, but it helped a lot.
Yeah,
And
that's
I've just
funny.
good.
That sounds like a interesting story to get into. We don't have the the capacity for that on this episode, but like yeah, your coach like is your fiance. Was he your fiance before he was your coach, or like or after? Like he coach first and then you guys started dating.
We actually met when because he was on the Olympic weightlifting team that I
Hmm.
eventually became a part of. But we actually met, he came down to watch like one of the CrossFit events when I was still doing CrossFit. And like I never take that day off work. And the one day that he like came down, I had taken that day off work to go and like compete in this thing.
Uh-huh. So that's how you guys kind of met and
Yeah.
everything's history after that, huh?
Yep.
So that's funny. Yeah, to go back to that when you mentioned something and I thought it was interesting about like how there's not a lot of data on like starting early, like weightlifting early and things like that. When I was younger, I was born in the Soviet Union and it was big, weightlifting was really big there too. And so like I was always told that like, oh, if you start too young, that it could like be detrimental to your growth, as a child. So it's like, I don't know. You said there's not much data. Do you know anything, like any recent information about that or anything like that? I know that on your Instagram you mentioned like you're a med student. Is that correct?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything about that you can share?
I honestly haven't really looked into
Hmm.
it lately,
Okay.
so I can't speculate, but I would be curious to look
Yeah.
more and see.
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, like my view on it is I think you should at least get to your like teens to be safe, and then like mid-teens, and then like before that maybe just body exercises. But like as far as pressure on the bones, like with weights, just to be on the safe side, I would just wait until like your teen years, But of course, I'm just speculating too, since we don't really know. So
Yeah. I think the biggest problem is like I mean, you see it now too. Everyone's like the big thing is like trying to push weight. And that's like
mhm.
if you're pushing weight with improper form, especially when you're young too, that was like I never had the best form either. So
Yeah, yeah.
it like puts you in more of a detriment.
Yeah, there's a guy that Joe Rogan had him on his podcast, and he's a Russian guy. He worked under like the Soviet weightlifting system, and he was explaining like how that system worked and how you progress to like heavier loads and everything. It's very like, I don't want to say it's complicated, but there's a lot of like steps and it's a serious program, And so like it's just interesting to like to see. And of course his focus is not just form, but also like producing the results, while bodybuilding is obviously more about the look that you're producing. So but it's just it's amazing to see like how in depth like weightlifting can get, at different levels. So like depending on what level you're on, it can get very in depth. So I just thought that was like, it is mind boggling.
Yeah, it has a lot of intricacies that you'd never like even think of until you start doing it. Same thing with bodybuilding though. I was
Yeah.
surprised.
So I was going to ask you what made you I know you said you were working, you're working on your upper body, trying to bring it up a little bit. And usually when I've just talked to a wellness girl, I think earlier last week, and almost every girl I talked to, like, rarely if ever work their upper body. Is there like a reason that you chose wellness and not like figure or something like that?
I feel like wellness more chose me than I
Oh,
chose wellness. My coach, I was like, I want to do figure. Like, I when I started, I was like, oh, like bikini and wellness are like super like sexy
hmm
divisions. I don't
hmm
like that's not me. I'm more of like but in reality, like once you get into it, you realize that's like not what it is. And my coach was like, you have the legs of a wellness girl already. Like you don't you
Yeah.
won't make it in figure because your legs are like unproportional to your upper body.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, it's weird like that, right? Because it's like if your legs are that big, and from whatever, playing soccer or weightlifting at like a high level, it's you literally have to like stop working out, stop training your legs to fit into like a division like figure or bikini or whatever, something like that. And it's kind of like, I always thought it was like kind of counterintuitive whenever people say they stop working body parts. I get it. I get it. You're trying to get into this division. They're promoting like, smaller body part that you have. You basically have to stop training. Like, I get the concept of it, but it's kind of strange if you really think about it, because it's like bodybuilding is all about training. It's all about growing, progressing. And your like decision or your like step to move forward is to stop training, which is like completely counterintuitive. It's like, so I completely get where you're like, hey, I want to go into a division, where I fit in, and not try to, cut myself in half basically to try to make this one division.
Yeah. And I feel
So
like my upper body doesn't grow that well, so I wouldn't have made it in figure anyways.
yeah, well, I guess I shouldn't have said figure, like maybe like bikini, like you, but if your legs are that big, there's no way they're not gonna reward that. So which is, kind of brings you to another point as far as like all the like newer divisions we've been seeing throughout the years. Like, what do you think about that? Do you think they should continue like adding on divisions as they come, or kind of limited to what we have right now?
I don't know. I feel like I'm still kind of like a newbie in the sport, so it's hard for me to
Hmm
like say my fiance's mom actually she used to do women's bodybuilding back in the day.
hmm
She always complains about how like oh now like women's physique is now like what women's bodybuilding was because
Okay.
originally they made women's physique to make it like a softer look
hmm hmm
and
hmm
like not because they didn't want them as big as the women's bodybuilding. And then now it's kind of like after watching like the Pittsburgh Pro and stuff, like a lot of those girls are just as big as the women's bodybuilding was back then.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things where they're kind of like the lines become skewed, and then it becomes very difficult to like figure out what we're looking at. And you're right. They brought in women's physique to have like a more feminine, muscular look, more feminine, more appealing to than bodybuilding, right? But now, like you said, they're pushing everybody's pushing the envelope, and now everybody's just getting more like bigger, more conditioned, and it kind of starts going that direction. Are you? I know you said you're fairly new and you're kind of growing. With that point that you're still growing into wellness, are you concerned that wellness is gonna like take a turn for a different kind of look? Because right now we have, Fran as the Olympia champ, which I believe, like, most people agree, and I don't know if you do, but that she's kind of like a good representation of what wellness should be. But there are like a lot of girls that have almost, like bodybuilding type of legs with just, not as big of upper bodies. And so, like, what do you think? Are you concerned about that wellness might start getting bigger than what it, is, going a different direction?
I don't know. I feel like I guess we'll see kind of what happens with the Olympia this year. I think that's kind of be like the deciding factor,
Hmm.
like where wellness kind of is going. It's so new. It's like hard to say, but I think for me personally, I definitely that's something I do worry about, especially as a natural athlete. It's so hard for me to put on size already and then having like an extra standard, because my goal one day is to go pro, and like I
Hmm.
don't think as a natural athlete I'll ever like compete at a high level in pro, but that's just something, I've accepted. And
Right.
who knows what's going to happen, but
Right. That's interesting that you're so. I mean, there are like people that compete in the IFBB that are natural, but they're far and few between. I think there are definitely way more women than there are men for sure.
yeah.
Um, have I guess I should say, I'm trying to figure out how I should ask this. Have you always felt like that, or like, are you always going to be natural? Is that like your decision to all, or you're still like kind of debating?
I think right now just I'm pretty set on it, at least for like the next couple years, just
Hmm.
because I'm still like very young.
Hmm.
I want to have a family. I want to, you
Right,
know,
right. All the stuff that comes with, PEDs that like affect women. Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. I get it. There was another girl that I talked to a few months ago that is in wellness, and she's 100% natural, and she did get her pro card. So it's definitely doable. And so I obviously wish you the best. And I think you're definitely on your way. What are your like goals as far as the upcoming years? Like, where are you in your, development and your mindset as far as competitions?
I tell my coach that I'm like the best client ever. I'm because I always tell him I'm like, whenever you think I'm ready to compete, like let's go. If not, like I'm willing to grow and do whatever
Hmm.
it needs to like get to that next step. I am pending my kidney biopsy. I will be competing at the Ben Wilders National Natural Competition in November.
Okay.
I think that's a pro qualifier. And just to
Hmm.
kind of step on like a bigger stage and get some more experience. I don't really know what to expect yet, but I'm excited about it. Otherwise, just growing this next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Um, if you don't mind me asking, is this a serious concern as for with the kidneys?
No, they're just so I also have a congenital kidney defect. So
Mm,
it's healed, but they're like some of my lab results were all messed up. So they
okay.
sure I'm doing okay.
Okay. So with, sounds like hopefully with, everything going well, you'll be starting your prep, I guess, within what, like the next few months?
Yeah, I think we're gonna give it like a 15, 16 week prep. I don't have to lose as much as I did the first time.
I know that that's like a big thing. Like, with bodybuilders, if women and men, it's like the off season, they gain so much, weight that like it gets so difficult to go into prep and lose all that weight. Is that your goal, like from now on, just to kind of keep yourself like, relatively lean in the off season? You know, or are you like how are you gonna like set up your off season, I guess, as far as weight is concerned?
So now I'm reversed for my show. I only have 3 rounds up from stage 8. It's been 3 weeks. And then I have like another week on my reverse. And then I'm not really sure
Hmm.
yet what my growth phase all entails. Like I'm still very much a newbie, but I haven't actually gone through like an off season yet, so I'm excited to see kind of what
Okay.
happens.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
we'll
it's your
see.
it's your first essential off season.
Yeah, so I originally my first prep was for Emerald Cup, and I kind of it we did it was like a 40 week very slow like cut down
Hmm.
for Emerald because I'd lost like 40 pounds.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, so I I say that I considered myself in like a permanent off season before. And
That's too funny. Oh my goodness. So so you lost 40 pounds. That's a lot of weight. Did you like how did you feel when you were losing that weight? I know you said it's a slow progression, but like mentally and physically, like how did that process feel for you?
oh, it was great.
Mhm.
I- It's so weird. I think prep was like the happiest and like healthiest I felt. There was
Mhm.
one of the makeup ladies was like, I've never seen someone so happy this deep in prep. But
Mm.
I don't know. I felt
Yeah,
so good.
that's
I
good.
think it was
That's
from
good.
just like years of, feeling like crap all the time from eating bad food and stuff from
Yeah.
weightlifting.
Yeah, it the food that we eat has such a like profound effect on like your the way you feel. It's and I know that's like to most of us in like the fitness industry, people that care about how, nutrition and all that kind of stuff, that's like a basic concept. Of course it does. But like there's so many people out there that don't make that correlation. That's like, hey, like what you put in your mouth has a direct effect on how you feel throughout the day. Like it really does. And so it's just it kind of sometimes is sad to see people like in that state, but I do feel that like a, a person has to kind of make that decision for themselves. And like once they decide and once they set, they say to themselves, okay, that's it. That's enough. I'm gonna start, moving forward in the right direction. Like that's the only time things are going to change. Cause I've had friends and, that I tell them things, I encourage them. And so it doesn't seem to be working, but I feel that that's probably the issue. They're not ready for it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to do it for yourself. I feel like if you have like that external noise, it's so hard if you don't want it yourself.
Yeah. How did you, at what point, I guess, did you decide that like that eating unhealthy and kind of living that kind of lifestyle was enough? Like when did you get fed up with that?
I think it was so I met my coach's wife at military training over the summer of 2022, and she's an
Mhm.
IFBB pro, and that's how I started with bodybuilding.
Mhm.
But I got home from training and I just remember looking in the mirror one day and like about to go out to put my swimsuit on to go out to the river to go hang out with my dogs. And I was like, God, I hate the way that I look and I feel terrible all the time. I don't
Mhm.
want to do anything. I like am so, like with school, I like can't focus. Like, why am I
Yeah.
not doing as well as I want to? And I was like, what am I doing? Like,
Mhm.
why am I feeding myself all this garbage when I could be making myself better?
Yeah. And at that point, you just started kind of making the right decisions, huh?
Yeah, I think for me, getting a coach was like the biggest step for me. Like when
Mhm.
I started having someone to hold me accountable, I think that was like when the switch flipped. That was like, okay, as
Yeah.
long as like I just do it, I don't have to like do it, like write it out myself. If I have someone just to send me what I can do, like I can do that.
Yeah. What do you think that you're at a point where you could hold yourself accountable now, or do you feel like you still like need that coaching aspect to hold you accountable?
I think that's like kind of like at the point that I'm at right now is that am wondering that for myself.
Hmm.
And I just came back from another training last week where I didn't have any access to like a refrigerator or anything and like any of my prepped food.
Yeah.
And I was still able to like hit my macros with stuff that I needed to. And
Hmm.
that kind of for me was like the test of like, okay, can I do this on my own without, because I was on a meal plan the whole time. I wasn't on macros. Like, can I like do all the mathematics for myself to like make it
Yeah.
work? And
Yeah.
so I think I got this.
You accomplished. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Because the reason I say that is because it's like it seems like coaches are really like beneficial for those kind of situations where you need that accountability at first. But I feel like a great like coach will get you to a point where you can be accountable for yourself. It's just one of those things where it's like, if your client constantly needs you, then I feel like there's like there's a step that's missing. There's like that constant dependability on you, because what happens if you're gone, or like what happens if you move or they move or whatever. So it's like you want to be able to give them that independence, and sounds like you're absolutely at that point.
Yeah.
So for sure, for sure. So we're hoping for November, and then we're hoping for that's a pro qualifier, right? You said?
Yep.
Okay. So meaning that they're giving out pro cards,
Yeah.
correct?
So the overall
Right.
wins
So
card.
then so we're hoping for a pro card then, and then are you planning to, like, let's just say hypothetically you win your pro card in November. Are you thinking competing in the pros the very next year, or you think you're going to take the year to grow and develop?
I think it kind of just depends. I think maybe if I do get my pro card, it would be probably towards the end of 2024. It kind of just depends. I will be applying for medical school residencies mm,
Okay.
next year, so I'll have a little bit of a period where I'll be traveling a lot and doing a lot of
Mhm.
audition rotations and stuff. So it might be a little challenging to get in like a full prep for a pro show.
Yeah, yeah. But from what I understand, like residency is like very time consuming. So it's gonna be tough. I forgot who was telling the story, but he was this guy was in um medical residency, and so but he was also competing at like the national like championships of like taekwondo or something like that, karate or something like that. And so he would study, like do like residency, whatever, like do his rotations, and then like in the middle of like the free time he would like put his backpack on, like throw books in the backpack, and then run stairs. Like it's like, man, that sounds like a miserable life, but I guess if you want something bad enough, you do it. But that's wild. So I have a degree in business, master's in business, but I decided to get into the medical field. So I'm in nursing school right now. So it's like, obviously I'm just to finish my first semester. So my clinicals like haven't really gotten hectic just yet, but I'm already like, oh man, next semester is going to be a mess. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm prepping my mind for it.
Yeah, I start my rotations in July.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see how like it'll kind of be like a mini physician to see how I can do with prep and
Yeah, yeah,
clinical
for sure.
obligations.
What year would you be then if you're already starting residency?
So I'll just be doing like my clinical rotations. So I'll be a third year.
Oh, third. Okay, third. Okay, cool, cool. So then it's a how long you got? 4 years
Hmm.
altogether. So you just got one more. Well, this one and then the next one, right?
Yep.
So, and then you're done. Do you have aspirations of being a particular field?
Yeah, I want to go for sure. I know I want to go into general surgery. I've been wanting to go into cardiothoracic for a really long time, but I haven't decided if I want to just be like a private practice general surgeon and have like a good family life and all of that,
Hmm.
or if I want to do transplant, trauma,
Got it.
the
So
military.
yeah. So when you talk about general surgery, are you and you have to excuse me out, like my mom works in cardiac surgery, but I'm not as familiar with everything. Is so when you say a doctor in general, are you referring to you being the surgeon,
Yeah.
going that direction? Okay. So
Yeah.
that would require more schooling, I'm sure.
Yeah, that'll be a 5-year residency.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So that's going to be intense. Are
then
you so have you always like you felt like you could do that kind of work? Like, I don't know, do you need like steady hands for that or something? Like, I'm sure you do. Like, is there something in you that you're like, I think I'll be good at that, or is that just like a mental desire that you have?
it's always kind of been like an intrinsic drive.
Hmm.
Like I've always been like, oh, I can't imagine myself like in any other part of medicine than being a surgeon.
I got you. So it's kind of like that tunnel vision of that, in that field. Well, hey,
Yeah,
I mean, if you know you want it, might as well go ahead and go for it. What's the purpose of doing all this if you can't get where you want to be, right?
true.
So cool. I get it. Well, hey, Leilani, I really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. I don't want to take up any more of your time. So I wish you well in your, competitions. I wish you well, in your medical aspirations as well. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been great being on
Yeah.
here.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.